Good morning and welcome the Thursday edition of the Half Empty Cup 3. But we got a great show for you. We got David Weiss, Flat Earth Dave, with us. Never boring, but always controversial. David Weiss. Dave, welcome to the show. Happy holidays, Merry Christmas, Happy New Year, because obviously we won't have you on again until 2024. But we're real excited to have you today.
Thanks for having me back. It's good to try to wake people up to the reality of our world. And, we all have the same story. We laugh at Flat Earth until you actually look at it. Then you're like, wow, how did I ever think we lived on a ball?
Dave, I'm starting to get to the point where when someone wants to ask, or let's just say a naysayer, and I don't have a lot of conversations, but it gets struck up once in a while because I'm on the air. And I'm just starting to, and you telling me, because you've had to talk to many tens, if not hundreds more people than I'm going to talk to about this. But I've gotten to the point where if I get somebody who's got that closed mind, it's just going to be argumentative, and they're not going to actually just look. I just say, well, if Flat Earth isn't real, then can you tell me what the Flat Earth model is, and just tell me what's wrong about it? Because that seems to be the one thing. People just don't know the globe model or the Flat Earth model.
Well, here's the thing. We can absolutely 100% prove that it's not a globe. There are many questions we have on how this realm is set up and what's below it, what's beyond Antarctica. And that's okay. These are the questions that we can ask and conversations that we can have. But when you can 100% scientifically falsify, prove false the globe, falsification is independent of replacement. So, Joe, if you were accused of stealing a cookie from the cookie jar, the last cookie from the cookie jar, and you're accused, and I prove to the person that no, you were in Europe at that time. The person can't come to me and go, well, then who did it? Because until you show me who did it, he's guilty, because you can prove something that, isn't. And so falsification is independent of replacement. And I'll start there. How's that?
Well, and Dave, we're going to hit our first commercial break, and we'll have our long segment. I definitely, if you want to give us a little heads up or a little heads up about the debate. I did watch quite a bit of it. I was trying to find the 5-minute video on YouTube. They might have taken it out the last 5 minutes, because I found myself having to shut it off once Pastor Greg Locke got into his, because Dean Odell went for 2 hours and was really educating the church, all the people there about Flat Earth. And then when Greg Locke, I just like, oh no, is this going to be 2 hours? So I shut it off. But then I found out that a whole lot of stuff happened at the end.
Yeah. So Pastor Locke went through 41 verses that are unquestionably proving biblical Flat Earth. And Greg Locke supplied, I think it was 7 verses that weren't even verses that we used. Like, instead of debating Pastor Locke, he found a list from a crazy guy that wrote a list called 200 biblical Flat Earth proofs that we all agree is a crazy list, and we don't go by it. So for some reason, that was his defense. He refused to address anything that Pastor Locke, Pastor Odell had made. So it's very interesting, and there's so much information out there. The problem is, we live in a world of very lazy people where nobody wants to do the work. They'd rather just believe. So here's the thing. I offer 3 Bitcoins for 1 globe proof. I'll convert that into silver coins from you guys, anyone that can come up with 1 globe proof.
Well, there you go, Joe. Are you rooting for a globe earth now?
Come on, man. Somebody figure it out. We'll be back with more. Stay with us. Welcome back here, the Half Empty Cup, 877-536-1360. For those of you that didn't know, it was an event in Nashville where David and others, they were put to the test to, I guess, be proven wrong about their belief that the earth is flat. And it turned into, I guess, quite an event to where it sounds like people were hey, we don't care what proof you bring or what evidence you think you're bringing. This is what our belief is, and doesn't look like there was a lot of open-mindedness happening at the event.
It started out really, really cordial and nice, but Pastor Locke realized that he was being decimated with proofs, and he just literally flipped the table over at the end. It wasn't a debate on whether the Earth was flat or not. The true base level of the debate is whether the Bible is talking about a flat Earth or a globe. Now, it's not even a debate on whether the Bible is the Word of God, if the Bible is real. That's a whole separate thing. It's whether the Bible, the Bible, is talking about a flat Earth. And Pastor Locke clearly demonstrated that it is 100% talking about a flat, stationary, level, plane Earth with a firmament, a dome on top. And once you see that, anybody, if you're a preacher or a churchgoer, and you start looking at this, everything starts making so much more sense. It's truly amazing. So it was a debate not just for Christians, but for everybody about, is the Bible a flat Earth book? And it clearly is. On my app, the Flat Earth Sun, Moon, and Zodiac Clock app, there's a biblical section, and there's all sorts of stuff in there, including the debate part that you're looking for if you just click the biblical section in the app.
Excellent. So, like I said, I watched quite a bit of it, Dave, and then I did watch what happened at the end. But I heard there was, you were there, right? So,
I was front row.
Front row. Okay. So at the very end, Dean Ola was tired of being interrupted. And here's the thing: I didn't know Greg Locke very well, so I had to look. And apparently, this guy, probably not the best guy to be debating sphere Earth to begin with. He really was out of it. He was outmatched from the very get-go. It should have been somebody else to give it a competitive debate. But that being said. Well, the character of the pastor is in question. The guy is. I did not realize that Pastor Greg Locke is almost a cultish kind of figure. In some ways. This thing was solved from the beginning. But please tell me, as an eyewitness, even less about the debating points in some fashion. I heard that police were called in the parking lot, and I know that Dean Older tried to toss the mic over to, because he was interrupted so many times. Okay, I guess we're done. He tried to give the mic over to Pastor Greg Locke, and Greg Locke wouldn't take it, so he tossed it over to him. The guy slammed. I mean, it was almost like
childish. It was childish.
What was that TV? What was that old talk show? Jerry Springer. Almost was Jerry Springer at the end.
It was very much. So first, it started out where Pastor Locke made a rant on one Sunday afternoon or Sunday sermon against flat Earth, and Dean heard it and sent him a private message like, hey, man, I wish you had consulted me before you did that. I could point out a few things. And instead of responding on that personal private message, Pastor Locke, on his next sermon, said he'll challenge Dean Odell to a public debate. And Dean's like, if that's what you want, okay. And then they scheduled it, and it happened. So the whole thing at the end, the press release that Pastor Locke put out was unbelievable. It was like embarrassing on how he spun everything up. He said that Dean Odell threw the microphone at him. Dean tried to say something. They had turned off his mic. Pastor Locke says, throw this guy out. Turn off his mic. And he said, okay. And it was a wireless mic, and he literally underhand lobbed it to him in the nicest, like, here you go, and he batted it out of the air like a child. And right. And that was it. And then we left. He did call the cops. Nobody was rallied. Nobody charged the stage. Nobody tried to even say anything to him afterwards. He surrounded himself with literally a force that you would be comfortable walking through Iraq in the middle of the war with. I mean, he had armed bodyguards with bulletproof vests on, like a dozen of them surround him at the end. And we're like, what the heck is this?
So I heard the police were. I heard the police were, and you could tell me I wasn't there, but I heard the police were called also because there were some flat earthers out in the parking lot that were handing out materials for people to look at. Was that a part of why the police were called, or was it just simply Greg Locke going crazy?
Greg Locke going crazy. Well, yes, we had some flyers. So we were offering people some flyers with 10 biblical facts on them. And they're awesome flyers. So yeah, we weren't like forcing them on people, but we were offering them on the way in, during, and on the way out. Some people still had some, and they're like, "Would you like a flyer?" But the audience was mostly flat earthers. It was kind of amazing. And the next day, Pastor Locke held a sermon at the Sunday service at the hotel that we were at, and 250 people showed up, and a lot of Greg's church people showed up there to hear Dean speak. Yeah, it was actually quite an amazing service. But if you want to check out Dean's stuff, it's Dean Odell Ministries on Facebook. You can also find it on my app if you just hit the biblical section or just search Dean Odell in the video search section. It's really interesting stuff, and not just for Christians. It's for anybody. When you hear this stuff, it's going to make you think differently.
So Joe, it's interesting. I mean, I could see, Joe, whether you believe in flat earth or not, if you're going to host a debate, I don't see, even if you feel, I guess, outgunned in the debate, Joe, I don't see that you would ever act in such a way that you're hosting the debate. Maybe the audience is turned against you, meaning, well, maybe it looks like Joe wasn't prepared and the flat earther was. Joe, I don't see you slapping things down and shutting off mics and ordering them to leave and calling the police, Joe. I know you wouldn't do that. I know an average level-headed person wouldn't act that way, Joe.
Let me throw one other thing in there, too. Go ahead, Joe.
I was just going to say, it really has to do with the mindset coming in, and I think I could see this very easily happening because the first time that we had David on, I mean, he knows his stuff. So somebody that's unprepared and gets embarrassed, right? And you end up doing things probably later. He probably regrets. That would be my guess. How he handled things and kind of in front of his own congregation, sort of thing. So I could see how it would happen. It's unfortunate. I think this happens far too much in everything. It's like a lot of America anymore, and this is why. Why do we keep bringing Dave on? This is why. We bring him on because, hey, let's look at things from a different perspective. I'm not saying that Dave is right. I'm not saying that Dave is wrong. I'm just saying, hey, let's look at this from every angle. You know what? We may find out that, guess what? Everybody's wrong, right?
Yes.
We don't know. But it's worth the debate, and I love when people can come in and let's debate it. Let's talk, scientifically, biblically, however you want to talk. Let's have those discussions. We don't have to agree to agree. We can agree to disagree.
Let me throw something in here. If you want to learn about flat Earth, it doesn't take 5 minutes. It's also, difficult in short little segments, but we have enough of them where we're getting the message across. You have to take the time. You have to take the time to look. Now, during Dean's presentation, everybody was intently listening, and there was very little sound from the audience because Dean was going over point after point. Then when Greg goes up there, he goes up there and starts misquoting us. He starts strawmanning us, which is making claims that we didn't make, claiming that we made them, and then going off of a list of biblical facts that we all agree is a bogus list. So as he's going on, we started getting a little like, hey, why don't you address Dean's points instead of some other guy that's not here that we all agree is crazy? And yes, the audience got a little loud and interrupted him because he wasn't addressing anything and he was strawmanning us. So, again, it was, flat earthers there were on their very best behavior. And Dean was just really atrocious. And then, as you said earlier, if you look into Pastor Locke's history, he's got some crazy cultish antics going on there. So, yeah, it was a good day for Flat Earth, a bad day for the Global Vision Church, or as I call the Global Delusion Church.
So there you go. So we've had some people calling in on the non-Flat Earth days. I want to make this clear. if we're going to talk flat Earth, this is the day we're going to do it on. And Brian, we talked to Brian a couple of times in the last few weeks. Ethan, I thought it looked like Ethan was trying to come in. So Ethan, if you're coming in, this is the time to come in. 877-536-1360. But if we're not going to turn the Half Empty Cup of Joe into a flat Earth show, but we have the Flat Earth Day. It's the third
it's gonna
Thursday.
Be a flat Earth show.
Well, we got to cover more than that.
Hey, we do flat Earth when Dave is here. The text line. Let's see. At least
Let me ask you a question.
At least a dozen
countries. Go ahead. Sorry.
Have sent probes and satellites into space. U.S., Russia, China, India have sent manned and or unmanned missions to the moon. Tens of thousands of people have been involved in these programs. Think of NASA. I've known people involved in space missions. There is absolutely no way that this flat Earth crap could possibly be concealed from the general populace. That's from Ed.
Yeah, so let me. I'll address that. There are far less people in the space industry than they believe. NASA wants you to believe they have like 50,000 employees when in fact maybe they have 5,000. Everyone that we've talked to there says that nobody knows what the other person next to them is doing, so it's very compartmentalized. The probes that you're claiming have gone into space have all you can just look at all of our evidence. We show you how they're faking it. Google satellites in space and images of satellites in space, and there are none. There's just CGI renderings. There's no photos of a satellite in space ever. But the people that say they've gone to space are either under mind control, but most of them know that they're lying. If you just look at the Apollo press conference after the Apollo astronauts got back, literally you can tell that these men are being forced to lie.
Dave, let me jump in real quick on this. If someone thinks that you can't keep an organization like NASA quiet about something, first of all, not everyone in an organization knows what's happening. Just because you see pictures doesn't mean. But number two, every NASA astronaut, and most of NASA, but every NASA astronaut is a Freemason. A Freemason is a secret society, and if you don't think a large amount of men can keep things secret, go research Freemasonry. So if the moon landings are fake, which I know they are, Dave, it's very easy to keep thousands of people in the dark.
Once you catch NASA lying, faking, space ISS footage, once you catch them doing it once, you can unwind it to everything else. NASA is literally the head, in my opinion, the head intelligence agency of the world, and all of these other space agencies that all have the vector symbol in their logo showing that they're in the same club, they all report to NASA, and they're doing a really horrible job because anyone that looked at the India moon landing a couple months ago, it literally, my Atari game back in the 1980s was far better graphics than what they showed. So we can go
we're going to hit a break. David Weiss is our guest here on the Half Empty Cup of Joe. Ethan, you're up first. Andrew, you're up next. 877-536-1360. We'll get those phone calls on the other side.
We're back here, the Half Empty Cup. Joe and Jason with David Weiss, and we're going to get out to the phone lines here in just a minute, but appreciate the text, the callers, everybody else, and I kind of like with Ed, man. This is a hard one for me as well, because you sit there and you think about, okay, I guess it's possible, but why wouldn't China, Russia, somebody call us out and say, hey, you know what, guys, they're lying. Here's all the proof. All these things like that. But I can absolutely understand. I think for a lot of us that don't have the biblical or don't have the scientific background, these are things that give us pause, Jason.
Yeah, real quick, I'll go to Dave. People don't want to believe that the central bank of our country is the same central bankers that run Russia's central bank or China's central bank. People think that the Chinese run their central bank. They don't believe that it's a small group of individuals that bank all these countries. We don't really have countries anymore. I know it's a foreign idea, just like flat Earth, but would Russia keep this quiet and China keep this quiet and the UK keep this quiet if they're all financially
100%.
tied together, they would absolutely want to keep this under their belt, because freedom is just over that ice shelter, possibly, right? Right, Dave?
Right. When people wake up to the true reality of our Earth, God's created Earth, natural, flat Earth, then you literally unplug from their control matrix. This is how they get you. You're born into their birthing system. They give you a birth certificate. They create a straw man identity, which is your name, and they trade it on the stock market. Now you're working on their model with their fake money. So if you live in their system, and there's a law that basically says that he who creates it owns it. So they know that they can't change God's creation, so they created their own satanic model, the globe, and we willingly choose to live there. Now, if you live there, you're playing on their game board with their monopoly money, and you have to abide by their rules. And the reason they keep this a secret is because all of us that wake up to it literally unplug from their matrix. And we don't have to play by their rules because it's all voluntary. And you are voluntarily living on a satanic, limited, ball that keeps you from living your true potential. And what's funny is they've done such a good job that people will fight to the death to defend the globe when they don't even know why they're defending it, other than they don't want to be proven wrong.
Let's get to these callers. So, Ethan, thank you for holding, Ethan. You are up first. Go ahead.
Good morning, gentlemen. I have a lot to say, so I'm just going to keep talking until you need to let me go.
Okay,
Joe,
go ahead, Ethan. Ethan, we're going to give you a couple minutes because you called in earlier in the week, and you were nice enough to get off the air and then wait till today. So go take a minute
right
or two.
On. Well, thank you. So, Joe, you just mentioned, why you asked the question. Well, why would somebody do this? So why would they allow this, a secret to go unchallenged? I think that's a big mistake in investigating anything in the natural world. It's always best to look at the what and determine the what, and you can figure out the why later. And the reason that's a mistake is because if we can't believe why someone would do something or not do something, it's going to blind us as to what we're observing, because we're not going to accept what we're observing because we can't, come up with a why to go with it. And when I called the other day, I wasn't calling about flat Earth per se. I was just using it as an analogy about knowledge in general. And I'll go to financial, something Joe knows about. Like, Joe, how many times have you tried to explain to someone the benefits of an asset-backed currency versus a fiat currency, and that person has no clue what a fiat currency is, even though they're living in the system, they're using the fiat currency, and so you couldn't really make your point because they can't understand the comparison. So my point there being that flat Earth, for example, can be really hard to explain to someone that believes globe Earth, but they don't know why. They don't know why they believe it. They're not very well versed in the very complicated theories and mechanisms involved with heliocentrism. So and that's what I run up against a lot. And by the way, my position on flat Earth is I don't know the shape of the Earth. I haven't been high up enough to look at it. But I think that the spinning globe thing is preposterous at this point, based on the experiments that I've done for myself and the observation.
Good for you, man. Good for you.
Of my
Good for you.
And what got me on this track, this was years ago, probably 2017, a good friend of mine who at one time was a Dean's List honor roll astrophysics major that started talking about flat Earth. And it made a lot of sense to her. I think because she had such an intimate knowledge of heliocentrism, she was able to make sense of it more quickly. So I immediately went out and did my very first experiment, and I'll tell you about it right quick. So at the time I was living in New Orleans and had the benefit of Big Lake Pontchartrain with the longest bridge over water. And if heliocentrism is correct, then water must curve over distance, and she provided me with the generally accepted math for calculating curve over distance, and I had a vantage point of this one pier I could go to and see the Causeway Bridge from the side from about a half mile away, and I took a straight edge with me and propped it against a post, and it's like, okay, within the distance of my peripheral vision, I could see about 6 miles of the bridge. from the north end and then about 6 miles out. And in calculating how much curve there should be over 6 miles, then bridge should be obscured at either end of this straight edge that I'm holding within my peripheral vision. But it was exactly straight with the straight edge. And by the way, the underside of the bridge is the same height above the water all 24 miles. So that was my first experiment. And did others. I've determined, for example, that there's no way we look at how shadows recede as the sun sets. It's a perfectly linear fashion. That this is not possible on a curved surface. I've done
Ethan,
that.
I got some other callers. That is extraordinary. I'm going to have Dave have a comment and see if we can get to Andrew before the break here. But it's outstanding call. What do you say, Dave?
That's a man that is actually thinking and using his God-given common sense to go verify everything. Don't believe anything. And his comment about shadows is, think about this. As the sun dips down below the curve of the earth, you should see a shadow rip up from the back of the sky towards the front of the sky, blocking out the clouds and everything as the sun goes down. But we don't see that. The sun just goes away and the shadow just fades out. And if you watch time lapses, it shows exactly what it's like of a light just going away. So there you go.
Yeah, that's always been one of the things that got me, Dave, which is you look at the sun coming through the clouds, and you have sunbeams going in different directions. From something that's 100 million miles away, the sunbeams should be coming straight to you in one direction. So, Andrew, thank you for being patient. You're first up on the other side of the break. 877-536-1360. Brian with an I. You'll be after that. Flat Earth Thursday with Flat Earth Dave, 877-536-1360 if you want to call in, text in. We love the text. If you don't want to argue or debate Flat Earth Dave, just text in. Joel will read it, and if you don't like his counterpoint, then call in or text in again. We'll keep on reading it. I had one text that came in on my phone, Joe, that said, This is the kind of content I like to tune into KHNC to listen to, because I think it was kind of just basically saying, all the other stations are saying the same thing. They're covering Trump and Colorado, and here's something a little different to listen to on a Thursday.
Actually, the timing was perfect for this, because I did not want to talk about that again, right? So having Dave on today just worked out perfectly for us.
Andrew, thank you so much for waiting. Go ahead. What is your comment for Dave?
Hi, I had a question. Do you have any theories on what makes the moon shine the way it does and what makes the different stages? Or is it just a reflection of the sun's rays?
Great question. Let me answer that. If we look at the NASA, explanation, the moon is a dusty, dirty ball. How does a dusty, dirty ball reflect sunlight so bright that we can read a book by it and casts our shadow on the ground? That makes absolutely no sense. If the moon is a sphere and the sun is a single source light, which is what they claim, there would be a hot spot. Look at a sphere lit by single source light. There's a hot spot and then it kind of fades out. But when we look at the full moon, it's even from edge to edge. It's glowing. It's actually sending us light. So the phases of the moon, now, I truly believe that the moon is a sphere. Whatever it is, I believe it's a sphere, but the lights on my ceiling don't dictate the shape of my floor. So I think it has to do with its relative position to the sun. So when the sun is on over South America, and the moon is a full moon over at the same time would be over China on that side of the world, you have a full moon. And as it moves around, its angle to the sun changes, and the sun's electricity, that's right, the sun sends electricity, solar panels prove that, that it literally illuminates the moon. I think it's part of this battery system that we live in. The sun and the moon are the anode and the cathode. The salt water, it carries the current. The land is the salt bridge, and that's a battery. So we live in this electric dielectric plane, in this toroidal field on the plane in the middle of the field. Again, check out flatearthdave.com. Go to the interview section. We discuss this often with lots of graphics to show you. And, then you'll start to understand. But for anyone to say they know what the moon is, they know what stars are, and they know what the sun is, they're just speculating. Nobody knows in the flat earth world or the heliocentric world. Because their explanation for what the sun is, a gas ball in a vacuum, Since when do gases collapse upon themselves and burn forever and create a vacuum? Gas violently fills the available space, right? So the sun is made up of 99% helium and hydrogen, but it has gravity. None of it makes any sense. And people just short circuit when they try to figure it out because it's unfigure-outable, and then they just give up their authority, and they say, you know what? I'm not educated. I need to trust a guy in a bow tie that lies who used to be a comedian. Okay? And so that's how they get you. They make it so complicated that you throw up your hands and go, I'm not qualified. You are qualified. God gave you a brain and common sense.
Joe, did you have a comment before I go to another caller?
Yeah, well, one of the texters had texted and said, hey, this may be a dumb question or an easy question. What about shooting stars? What are those?
Yeah, this is very interesting. So shooting stars are an electrical phenomenon, in my opinion. And if you think about this, if we're on a globe and I see a shooting star shooting down towards the horizon here in America, somebody in South America would see it shooting up from their horizon because they're upside down looking at the same horizon, right? Nobody has ever seen a shooting star shoot up from the horizon. They only go down no matter where you are on Earth. That right there tells you, doesn't tell you what a shooting star is. It tells you that they only go down. They don't go up. On a ball, they would be required to go in every direction, sideways, up, down,
yeah,
left,
right.
right.
From your perspective, where you are on the ball, you should be able to see the shooting star going in any number of directions, depending on your perspective of the
up
event.
From the horizon, because up from the horizon for us is down to somebody in Brazil. And the reason your mind is short circuiting is because the helio-nonsensical model is complete and total nonsense.
That's brilliant. I got some questions that I've been waiting to add. If the callers keep coming in, we'll have to do it next month. But right now, Brian, let me get Brian with an I in. Brian with an I. This is not the Brian that's called in the last few weeks. This is our old timer in Longmont. Brian, thank you for calling in. What is your comment?
Hey, fellas. Good to talk to you. Joe and Jason and David, best wishes. I'm a little off topic, but when you were talking, Dave, you were talking earlier about birth certificates and all that stuff. So, Jason, several months, maybe even last year, you put up a audio of it was kind of around that subject, and it's a British guy, and he's talking about dealing with the stuff that we're in, all this.
Yeah, you're talking about. Of course, I'm going to miss his name, but the guy from Salisbury in the UK, the occult art of law. Is that what you're talking about?
Right. So he's talking about an exchange he had with, I think it was some official person in England, and the other guy says, "Well, what is your name?" And the guy from Salisbury says, "What makes you think I have such a thing?" And that was very illuminating to me. And kind of backing that up, later I saw a little news article somewhere, on my computer. I'm listening to my radio. I don't like TVs. Some things on them I would like, but I don't have one. So they had a news blurb about a young adult in Southeast Asia, Thailand, somewhere, and she was arrested, or I think she was arrested for something, and they said, "Well, what is your name?" And she said, "I don't have one." And they kept her, and what she had done was apparently definitely criminal, and they let her go. She didn't have a name.
Yeah, so Brian, we'll briefly cover this because, yes, David talked about, hey, you sign away your freedoms right at birth. We'll cover that really quickly on the other side. Half Empty Cup of Joe. This is a short segment. I'll be real quick. What Brian was talking about is the occult art of law. I used to play it on kind of a more dead part of the schedule on the weekends, and it's about 49, 50-minute piece. And it's Alan of Salisbury, and he talks about, the way our world is actually run. When Dave said earlier that your birth certificate is bought and sold on the stock market, That is precisely what that is about. Dave, I'm sure have you watched that 50-minute piece? I'm sure you have, but I'm just asking just because I don't know.
I've seen them all. That might have been David Streith you're talking about, and there's a whole bunch
this
of
guy
guys
Alan.
that...
This guy Alan from Salisbury was attending some speeches at a college in Salisbury, and he basically was asked because the guy that was supposed to speak had to cancel. And they just cold out of the audience that they knew that he knew some stuff about how the world was run. They're like, could you just quickly do a speech for us? And in a 49-minute brilliant speech covered exactly how the world is run. And he says, I know you guys think this is crazy, but this is the way it is. It's a really brilliant piece. If you go to BitChute or if you go to Rumble and just put Occult Art of Law, you'll find it real quick. And it's worth a listen for anybody, Joe. We'll go to Joe first real quick.
Okay, so really quickly, back on this the text line here. This is a question for you, Dave. I agree with most flat Earth arguments. However, I refuse to believe the Starlink satellites are balloons. What say, Dave? 10 to 15 in perfect alignment move across the sky.
Yeah, so I agree. I don't think they're balloons either. And I saw them. I was on my boat one evening. I was like, what the heck is that? And we heard a jet fighter in front of them and a jet fighter way behind them. Something like no one get in this airspace kind of feeling is what I got. But if you think about it, you look up at the sky at a 747 flying at altitude, and you can see the plane. And you can't really make out the engines. They're too small. But those engines are the size of about 25 Starlink satellites. So 1/25th of the size of a 747 engine is a Starlink satellite. And the 747 that you're looking at is maybe 5 to 7 miles in the sky, and you can't see the engine. The Starlink satellite is 300 miles in the sky, and you can see it with your naked eye. For any thinking person right there, proves that it's not that small and it's not that far away.
Dave, Yeah, that's what I say, Dave. Really quick, so if they're putting satellites up there, how are they up there then? Even if we see them or not see them, I think you made that case. How are they getting up? Because I've seen a lot of evidence that balloons are possibly keeping satellites up and keeping them positioned.
Evidence, actual 100% proof. There's NASA admits they have tens of thousands of these things up there, and they're crashing all over the Earth, and they get quickly picked up by military people as soon as they can, but everybody's got a high-def camera in their pocket, and there's tons and tons of videos of them crashing. Every time a satellite crashes somewhere on Earth, there's a giant balloon attached to it. Now NASA's coming out saying, hey, we found a way to save on satellites. We're going to put them up on balloons. You know why they're saying that? Because we expose them. Balloons bigger than football stadiums, right, that hold these satellites up there, and they can control where they go. You get them up to a certain height, they're going to stay geostationary right over where you need them. So
the Chinese spy balloon, which looked like a satellite to me, they can move that satellite back and forth because of something inside the satellite.
They can make it go up and down into different wind currents, or up high enough where there is no wind.
There you go. That's David Weiss, Flat Earth Dave. Dave, we're going to hit this break. We'll go right to you because the call lines are empty right now. 877-536-1360. We'll have more with David on the other side of this over the hour break. Welcome back. The half-empty cup of Joe, 877-536-1360. Dave, if we can hold just one more minute on what you're going to jump into. This is Brian. Brian came in a couple of times in between your appearances, and he was in Australia. And Brian, I'll let you go ahead and ask Dave, what do you want him to explain to you?
Well, before I go into that, I just want to say that I get that you folks are all about promoting distrust and fear of government institutions, the medical and scientific communities, and so on. You guys pander to people who feel disenfranchised, rightfully angry, for example, that the distribution of wealth continues to flow to a distinct minority, but these people are not willing to consider the possibility that maybe their lot might be due to poor life choices. And you do your best to discredit credible information sources as being part of the grand conspiracy, leaving your audience with the only choice to listen to right-wing sources such as Newsmax and InfoWars, which reinforces their mistaken views. Your loyal audience is marginally educated and math challenged, and you and Joe profit from this, for example, by hawking your gold coins. Now, but that's not why I called. I want to draw your attention.
Let me ask a quick question, though, Brian. Hold on, Brian.
Okay.
It's got to go back and forth, Brian. So hold on. One quick thing. What dictates a credible news agency, and how can you prove such a thing?
And where's your globe proof?
News agencies per se. I'm talking about credible sources of information. Okay.
Credible by your opinion?
Okay, Brian, you're credible
no,
or not. We got
opinion.
you. It's the Flat Earth Show, okay. So let's stay with that. You want to debate gold or financial stuff with me anytime on a different show? I'll gladly entertain it. But get to your point. Get to your question. I'm excited to hear it. So let's get to it.
Okay. Dave, I was in Australia and last week, and guess what? I could not see the
moon was upside down.
Star. I could not see the North Star. And oh, by the way,
let me answer that right now before we run out of time.
Cross, and you guys cannot see the Southern Cross.
Okay,
Dave, you got. This is the long segment. We got till 11:30 Colorado time. So start with the North Star.
All right. So the reason you can't see the North Star is because of perspective, and it's too far away. If we were in a room together with 10-foot-high ceilings and there was a whole bunch of random recessed lights, we could look up at the lights and say, oh, look, there's an octopus, and there's a bull, and there's a man. And we're like, cool. Now we spread that room out to the size of New York City, and I send you 5 miles away from me. So you start walking 5 miles away. I yell, you can't hear me. Okay, because you're too far away. So I call you on your cell phone. I say, hey, look up at the lights in the ceiling. Do you see that octopus? Do you see that man? Do you see? No, I see different lights, you say. I'm like, oh, okay, the floor must be a sphere. Because in your world, that's what you're saying. You don't understand what the lights in the sky are celestial objects. Then you have the atmospheric layer, and we live on the terrestrial layer. So when you look into the distance, even in Las Vegas, in a hotel, in the Bellagio, go to one end of the hallway, look at the other end. The lights on the ceiling are merging with the floor. Right? Go out on a straight street that has street lights and look at the street light over your head, and now look a half a mile down the road. You can't even see the street lights anymore because they've merged. All of those objects are terrestrial objects. Now put a celestial object above the atmosphere. Again, on my app, go to the where does the sun go, and you'll see how things go beyond the horizon. Now, getting to the Southern Cross, you can see the Southern Cross from Texas. And that's impossible on a globe, but
no, you cannot.
Yes, you can. On a clear night, it has been seen from Texas. Hold on. And I have another thing. I have a pilot right now. Hold on. I'm talking. I have a pilot right now that flew from Miami to New Zealand the other night, and he said the Southern Cross stayed on the horizon the whole time. Now, that's impossible because as he's flying, diving over the ball down to New Zealand, the Southern Cross should have risen up in the sky, but it didn't. It stayed right there like the Flat Earth model explains. On my app, Flat Earth, go to the Southern Star rotation section, and then you'll see the visuals of what I'm talking about, and then you will understand. You can't see a street light 2 miles down the road because it's merged into the horizon. Now, if you zoom in on it with a telescope, yeah, you'll be able to see it, but that's not how it works on Earth with an atmospheric layer that becomes opaque and merges to your eye line. When you're looking at a horizon, that horizontal eye zone, that could be thousands of feet above your head. It actually is thousands of feet above your eye line, but it looks like it's at your eye line, and the lights just go beyond it, period.
Brian, go ahead. Continue.
That's all a crock. You know, the North Star is visible anywhere in the northern hemisphere. I've seen it in
because
California,
you're close to it.
I've seen it in Pennsylvania.
Because you're close to it. Because you're close to it.
I'm close to it.
Yeah, because you're close to
According
it.
To your
Go outside.
Model, it wouldn't matter where I am.
No, you didn't hear a word that I said because you're locked in your belief. You're locked in your belief. You're not listening to the perfect explanation I gave. Now, if you want to learn more about it,
Dave, let me ask a question. Brian, let me ask a question. Would you be willing to go to Dave? You know, because you have your knowledge and your understanding, so I'm not going to try to change your mind. But would you at least just go to David's site and just look at the information and try to make sense of it?
I'm at his site right now.
Right. Well, yeah, but on a phone call, you can't describe and understand. Here's the thing: Brian, let's say the flat Earth is completely wrong. Just for a moment, it's manure. But that doesn't mean that the model of what the flat Earth is false. There's still a model. What I'm saying, Brian, is how can you disprove a model if you don't understand how that model works? Can you explain that?
Yeah.
Don't have to disprove it. Okay?
Well,
don't have to. It's false. You can't
No.
prove something. You can't prove a negative. Okay?
Yes, we can. We can see too far. We can see too far. On a globe, listen, on a globe, there is a set physical distance at a certain, at whatever altitude you're at, that you can see. A 6-foot tall person cannot see the surface of the water, according to the globe, beyond 3 miles because there's a 6-foot drop. But we can see the surface of the water for dozens of miles beyond it. So that proves, not that it's flat, that it's either a globe 1,000 times bigger than they tell us, or it's flat. And I'm going with flat.
No,
Brian, we can see too far.
Let me say one thing, Brian, real quick. I'll let you continue. But how about, Brian? Let me do this one. When 9/11 happened, I believed the story that was told to me that terrorists and planes crashed into buildings and took the buildings down. But then, as time went on, I learned, oh, wait a minute, there was lots of facts that didn't make sense, like buildings that are weakened by heat cannot, because of the floors, the rest of the structure of the building, they cannot fall at free fall. That building fell from the top to the bottom at free fall. I learned the model of how controlled demolition creates free fall for buildings, and realized that's a controlled demolition. That's not heat weakening the building and then collapsing the building at that rate. So what I'm saying to you, Brian, is I think if you looked at the flat Earth model and learned it, you'd have a better shot at proving Dave wrong.
Right. Check out my YouTube channel, DITRH, which stands for Deep Inside the Rabbit Hole.
Go ahead, Brian.
Yeah, still not explained why, if the Earth is a platter, why you can't, why the North Star is visible everywhere on that platter. And
let me ask you a question.
Why is it that NORAD spent so much money putting the dew line on the northernmost part of the globe? Why do the Navy and Air Force fly AWACS planes? Why is it that you can put a 10-megawatt radar on Manhattan and adjust the pulse width, the repetition rate, and not see air traffic at Heathrow Airport?
I'll tell you why. Because it's too far away. There's microwave transmissions, which they. Let me respond, man. Let me respond. Stop your chatting. Stop. So microwaves are line of sight. They have microwave towers that are going over 300 miles, which it goes through. I forget the number, but it's miles and miles and miles of curvature. They're seeing these now. The answer is, well, they're skipping off of the ionosphere. Well, these things are at 100 megahertz. The ionosphere supposedly can't stop anything over 40 megahertz. 100 megahertz going hundreds and hundreds and hundreds of miles, radio transmissions, Marconi's radio transmissions from the UK to the US, and no curvature, no issues. But again, you're unwilling to take the time and look at these things because you just want to believe what you believe. Belief is the enemy of knowing.
I'm having trouble.
Go to my channel. Go to my YouTube channel, DITRH. There's lots of short videos, and look at the one on perspective, and then you will understand what I'm saying. By you saying that, just keep on spouting that you can't see the North Star and you can only see it in the north, that's because you believe somebody standing under a street light, somebody 5 miles away can see that same street light. No,
Dave, I'm gonna let Brian let Brian go ahead and have a last word, so we can continue on. Brian, go ahead and have a last word, and then we'll move on.
Same thing. So you do not have
totally the same thing.
Why we can't see the North Star in the southern hemisphere, Larry? I know you're not our
Dave.
I know you're not that. Dave, I know you're not that stupid, and I know that you don't really believe this yourself. You just found it easy to pander to people, and it's more lucrative than going out and getting a real job. Sorry, Jason and Joe.
All right, that's all they have. They just have stupid insults, and they don't want to look at any evidence. It's so
Thanks for
silly.
calling.
Thanks for calling,
we
Brian.
still love you. You can insult us all you like, but keep listening because I guess it's working. So anyhow, that's what it always boils down to, right? And that's kind of the funny thing about all of that is. It ends up in name calling and very similar to what happened in Nashville. And I was looking forward to it, but,
Let me say this. Brian is probably my favorite caller, and that's because Jason likes to kick a little dirt and have a little argument. Brian, you can come on anytime, and as long as we can keep it cordial. Brian, I think he did a good job of going back and forth. Joe made it really apparent to me. We got to make sure that Dave and Brian aren't talking over the top of each other, so I did the best I could there. But Dave, each their own, right? I guess at some point you tell the story that you understand the world to be, and then at some point you just it goes from there for each individual.
So the fact that you can see the Southern Cross sometimes from Texas, that goes against the globe. He just denies it exists. It does exist. And there used to be an observatory 30 degrees south in South America that could see Polaris on a clear night. And they shut down that observatory. But the stats are still there. So we can see too far in space and on the ground. And the Earth is not a globe, provably, physically. I mean,
so for Dave, let me say this, Dave. Would this help then? If you can go down to those southern reaches and come up with a way to telescopically, in one way or another, see it, is that a big reason to believe flat Earth?
No, they just scream refraction. I mean, the Earth is observably flat. The globe breaks every law of thermodynamics. You can't have high pressure next to low pressure without a physical container, and they just claim pressure gradient, but we can prove that wrong. Gravity's holding the air down, but birds can fly and I can stand up and jump. It's absolute insanity when you actually look at it. Nobody that becomes a flat earther ever switches back to the globe. And the trolls out there, the paid agents, if you will, or possessed agents, they don't even use that you can see Polaris from the south argument anymore because they know that perspective completely covers it.
Dave, that's a really good point. Because I know a lot of flat earthers now because I talk about it. I have not heard of a flat earther go back to the traditional understood model. That is quite a point. We're going to hit a break here in about 30 seconds to a minute. I had a couple of things. We don't have any callers, so callers 877-536-1360. Caller text. We actually have open lines. But I was going to ask you a little bit about we're on AM FM radio. I heard some people earlier, and then we talked about solar flares. And then, of course, the solar panels that are on people's roofs. I want to ask you a few things about that when we get back.
We're back here, the half-empty cup of Joe and Jason with David Weiss. And I know David wanted to, I think, get into 9/11 a little bit ago. I would love to hear his comments on that.
Yeah, how much time do we have?
Yeah, we got 8 minutes. Go ahead. We got callers coming in, Dave, but go ahead and start with this because we sabotaged you when Brian called in.
So I don't want to get too deep into 9/11, but 9/11 people the two buildings fell at free fall. Building 7, which wasn't hit by an airplane, which was separated by another building in between, it fell at free fall. And nobody knows about Building 6, the smoking gun of 9/11, 10-story building where almost the entire inside of the building down to the basement disappeared. Just think about that. Think of like a half gallon of ice cream and you scoop all the ice cream out of the middle down to the bottom and it's just gone. The floors were gone. Everything that was in the building disappeared. And that's a whole nother topic. But that's not what I wanted to talk about. What I wanted to talk about was on the morning of 9/11, there was more than a dozen drills going on of airplanes being hijacked and crashed into buildings, including the World Trade Towers as some of those buildings. These were drills that were happening on the morning of 9/11. I think it was 14 or 16 drills, but I say over a dozen.
Out of NORAD, correct?
Out of nowhere. So all over the place, they're conjuring up this energy. So let's just look at a couple other things. The 7/7 bombings in, the 3 subways that were bombed at the same time in the UK, they were doing a drill at the exact same time of those 3 exact places being bombed. The Boston Marathon. During the marathon, they were doing a drill of a bomb exploding at the Boston Marathon before the bomb went off, right? And a whole bunch of other places. Actually, every false flag, every fake hoax has a drill going on at the same size. Now, why do they do this? There's a thing called revelation of the method, which is a lot of people believe, including myself to some point, that they kind of have to tell us what they're doing so they don't break their free will. But I think it's actually beyond that. You guys, I know that you talked about on a previous show the new movie by Barack and Michael Obama about
Leave the world behind.
Leave the world behind. So what is this? Is this are they telling us what they're doing, or are they conjuring? So this is what I mean by conjuring is the Bible says that humans have been given prophecy over the earth. We can speak things into existence, and they, the sound of our words and everything. If you look at like the sound waves of each word, it actually makes a Hebrew letter. And it's incredible. Just looking at the sound waves. So they've hidden the power of our words. But what they do is they put this in front of us. They get people freaking out, going, "Oh my God, oh my God!" And they're imagining, using our imagination to create our reality, these situations. And then the demons, whether you believe it or not, are going, "Hey, these prophets are deeming it, therefore we can do it." And this is how they do it. All of the people from the Clintons to everyone else that's involved in this, and the Obamas, they are known occultists, and they use this to conjure the world that they want. They use our energy. Whether you believe it or not, that's what they're doing. And the way they get away with it is most people in the world don't even believe something like that exists. All right? So, but that's what's going on. So watch
Dave,
these
I've actually said that, very like what you said. I've mentioned that it seems like quite possibly our reality could be fake, and that the hearts or the minds of the people that are in it are the only thing that's real. And if in a fake or false type of world, the willpower of the individuals in there can create the world as they see fit. So I've witnessed that. I actually watched a thing on Ronald Reagan where they were complaining and not liking Ronald Reagan for being a buffoon and kind of an idiot. But it's like all he did was just will his way to the things he wanted to get done. And I was like, well, yeah, that's kind of how I see the world. Strong willpower. You can will your way to the things you want done.
And those people, everyone in the world, everyone, just look at your life. You are your worst enemy. You are your best ally. Everything you have in your life is because of the way that you think and the words that come out of your mouth and the thoughts that you think. People are like, well, I want $1 million. When you say I want $1 million, what you're saying is I don't have $1 million. I'll never have $1 million. I'm going to be paycheck to paycheck for the rest of my life, and I'm going to be broke and homeless. That's what you're saying when you say I want $1 million, because nobody wants $1 million. You want a certain feeling. You want a certain security. You want a certain life. You want a certain ability, right? And if you focus on those things and take proper action, the biggest conspiracy in the world is this realm is conspiring to give you everything that you want, everything that you imagine. But the problem is they programmed us with the television programming and Netflix, and they literally have us conjuring up the reality that they want. So when you watch these movies and buy into it emotionally, you are literally creating their reality. So, again, if you decoded the Obama movie, there's so much stuff in there. It is unreal. Unreal. The 666 right in the opening scene, the all-seeing eyes, the ball in the credits, BAAL. There's so much to it, but they want you subliminally, subconsciously conjuring up this stuff.
Excellent. Let's try to get a caller in before the end of the segment, Dave. That's a lot of stuff that we should cover more of that on the next show. Maybe do a Flat Earth Light show, maybe on the next in January. But David, thank you for calling in. What do you have for Flat Earth, Dave?
I just have a couple questions. So you want to describe the flat Earth? How many square miles or whatever, how much area does it cover?
We don't know. No one's allowed to explore independently beyond 60 degrees south. And from 60 degrees south to where Antarctica starts is more ocean than all of the other oceans combined. So, we don't know what's here. Japan discovered 7,000 new islands this year.
Okay, so would you describe it as, let's just say, just for reference, an 8.5 by 11 sheet of paper, and if you held it out horizontally, would you describe the flat Earth as that?
Well, it's not a disc floating in space or anything like that. Basically, the way I describe it, well, I don't understand your question then.
Okay, so how would you describe the flat Earth? How much square area does it cover? What shape does it take? Is it a square?
Right.
What is it? Because I want to ask you something. What's on the other side of it, given my example?
Well, there's nothing on the other side. The way I look at it is we live on a dielectric. I'm going to answer your question. Don't if you talk over me, it's hard to hear. So we live in a toroidal field, and we live on this dielectric plane in the field. We can't dig down below 7.8 miles. That's the deepest hole ever dug, and they can't go down. So to say that you know what's below 7.8 miles is all just made up nonsense. Nobody, flat earther or globe earther, has ever been able to dig deeper than that. So the question is, what's beyond 60 degrees south? Well, we know that there's ice and land called Antarctica. Admiral Byrd said there's more land bigger than the United States that no human has ever set foot upon on the other side of the South Pole, which would put you over near Australia and South America. I think that the land goes on farther and farther. Captain Cook and other explorers have tried to circumnavigate Antarctica and have gone close to 70,000 miles in that circumference. So, when you look at these things, it makes you wonder.
Dave, we'll get you to get that second question on the other side. Stay with us. You're listening to the Half Empty Cup of Joe. The Half Empty Cup of Joe, 877-536-1360. Ed, we'll get to you in just a second. So David was coming to a conclusion or a question. He left the airwaves. So I wanted to say, I think I could bridge what Flat Earth Dave was saying to David, which is, you've heard, if you're listening closely, and the Flat Earth Dave moves fast. I know he really is pushing it hard. He said many times on this broadcast, and every time he's been on, my opinion on some things, and I don't know on other things. Dave is not claiming he knows everything. He never has. And so I'd like to help what Dave was trying to get to, Flat Earth Dave, and at this. Think of Lewis and Clark. And they're going westward and trying to figure out, where does this go to? They had no idea. They were mapping out the land and trying to figure out how big this place was and learn about this new world that they were in. Flat Earth, on whatever the shape and however the size of it is unknown on the model. There's a firmament. It's considered a firmament above. And the amount of land is unknown because we don't go down there and search it. So it's very much in the spirit of, hey, let's go search. Let's go find this. And if there is an area that's like this down there, it would be quite a thing to behold. Joe, did you have a comment before we go to Dave?
I'm just, and again, as I said, I'm not there. I'm not a flat earther. I have
Nope.
You're telling me nobody's been able to navigate Antarctica? Is that kind of the thing that we're talking about here? And as far as I know, right, it's just a big chunk of ice. When I'm sure that maybe if the ice melted, there would be some ground there eventually. But there's, nothing inhabitable about it.
And real quick, Dave, I'll help Joe because you've done this a few times. Think of the Earth as a big disc, Joe, and Antarctica is the entire ring encircling the entire planet, which means Antarctica becomes the largest landmass that we know of, and it goes around every continent, surrounding every continent that we know about, meaning a massive amount of exploration.
Think of the flat Earth as a lake in the middle of Kansas that's 100 miles around, and the rest of Kansas is Antarctica. We don't know what's out there because we're not allowed to independently explore. There could be other lakes. There could be nothing. We don't know because we're not even allowed to get to the real shoreline of Antarctica. You can spend, $20,000, $50,000, whatever, to go to Antarctica for a couple days, and they take you to Rothschild Island or Deception Island, which is off of the tip of Santiago. They don't get you, you're nowhere near the real shoreline of Antarctica. There are people that work in Antarctica. We've talked to them. None of them have seen the 24-hour sun. they're doing jobs in Antarctica, but they're also, when you apply for a job in Antarctica to be a plumber or whatever, they ask you all sorts of questions about your beliefs and your religion, and they don't want anybody with a questioning mind going to Antarctica.
And cover that really quickly, Dave. In the North Pole, you could have 24-hour-a-day sun, but no one actually experiences that in the Southern Hemisphere. Is that what you're saying?
Correct. There's several fake videos, and we've actually looked at the web cameras from all of the different stations out there, and at the same time in December, and a lot of them are showing nighttime. There should be no nighttime at any of those stations. So, you can believe what they tell you, or you can actually investigate and verify all things yourself, just like it says in the Bible, verify all things. And that's what flat earthers have done. We've changed our mind based on new information because we've verified the lies that they're telling us. We know that the government lies about everything from 9/11 to everything else. We can prove that they're faking the international fake station, and the new Chinese station, totally absurd. And then you can unwind all of that to, okay, they're lying about space, they're lying about the moon landings, they're lying about everything. Why would they not lie about the Earth? And the reason they lie about the Earth, the why, everyone says, is because they're hiding our true position. They're hiding our true divinity. They're hiding our true power. They're hiding free energy. They're hiding more resources. They're hiding more land. They're probably hiding other civilizations.
Excellent. We have another caller, 877-536-1360. Ed, thank you for waiting as long as you did. Go ahead. What is your statement or comment for Dave?
Hello, I'm here. I've got a couple of questions. One question is, when my brother calls me back from Europe at 4 o'clock in the morning, and he wonders how come I'm asleep, he already got noon. So why do we have...
Let me answer that real quick. Let me answer that real quick for you. So imagine you have a...
Can talk. Say the second question. When we have the full moon and the eclipse, so we've got sun on one side, moon on the other side, and there is a shadow of the Earth on the moon. Is the shadow on the moon eclipse flat or round? How you can explain that? Okay. Bye-bye.
Okay, so how much time do I have to answer?
You got a minute and a half. Go ahead.
So take a basketball, hold it on the ground, and you can see a perfect shadow from the sun shining down onto the ground. Now, lift it 10 feet in the air, you can't even see the shadow because shadows diffuse over distance. So you want to believe that a ball Earth, 250,000 miles away, can cast a perfect, crisp shadow on a moon. Feel free. Now, if you look in the eclipse section on the app that explains eclipses, there's a thing called the Selenilian eclipse. That is where the observer can see to his left the sun above his horizon and the moon to the right above his horizon, but the lunar eclipse starts. And not only does it start, it comes in, the shadow or whatever the darkening is, comes in from the top. Now, if you think about it, the Earth is causing that shadow, it should come in from the bottom. So you know what scientists call that? They call it the impossible eclipse. Well, it's perfectly explainable on a flat Earth, but it is perfectly provably false on a globe Earth. Now, getting to his first question was, why is it day and night? Just the Earth is a giant clock. The hour hand is the sun, right? When the sun is over America, it is far away from China, and therefore it's dark in China because it's a local light. That's why you can't see Polaris. That's why you can't see the other stars. It shows you that it's just showing you that it's a local light. Again, you can see on the app, go to the day and night section.
Excellent. We got one more segment here with Flat Earth Dave here on the Half Empty Cup of Joe. Final segment here on the Half Empty Cup of Joe. I'm going to go to our last, possibly our last caller before we finish this thing up. Pure Blood Mike, thank you for coming in, man. What is your comment?
Hey, what's happening? So, yeah, I was going to comment on the 9/11 thing that Dave was talking about, how a lot of that building disappeared and how, both them towers, a lot of the structural and the concrete and everything disappeared. So I'm pretty aware of that. Some technology that maybe we're not aware of or whatever. But a lot of both them buildings, a lot of the material that was that came down disappeared. So that was pretty amazing to hear Dave talk about that stuff.
Yeah.
Thank you very much, Mike.
Thanks, Mike. Real quick on that. There's big, huge chunks of concrete that were ejected from the building, at the explosion level at the top, and they turned into dust before they hit the ground. They turned into dust falling through the air. So here's the thing. I'm not claiming what did it. I'm saying there is a weapon that can turn concrete into dust in midair. That's all I'm saying. Now, there's a lot of evidence of particle colliders pointing at two different particle colliders, giant ones, pointing at the World Trade Towers that are still there today that people are unaware of. There's all sorts of stuff. They never talk about the Hurricane Erin that was right off the coast of New Jersey, beelining for Manhattan, a Category 3 hurricane. Never mentioned it on the news. Right? Category 3 hurricane heading beeline for New York City for 5 days in a row, intensifying. On the morning of 9/11, it stopped with its outer arms just touching JFK and New Jersey. And then after the towers fell, it did a hairpin turn and went back out to sea.
I've never heard that. I've never heard that before. I've always assumed that a lot of the concrete was pulverized because of the thermite that lined the buildings on all floors and took out all those floors. But
yeah. What you heard was Architects for 9/11 Truth. They're telling you some truth, but they're also hiding some truth. If you want to find the truth on 9/11, go to stoplookthink.com and click the 9/11. Just search 9/11. There's a whole page, and just turn off Netflix for a couple weeks and start watching those videos, and your mind will be blown away with knowledge.
Joe, there you go, man. Tons of callers, lots of reaction to today's show.
Yeah, and always is, and again, I want to thank most of our callers for decorum. I know this is something that it's a touchy subject for some, right? And I would say the minority of our listeners, it's very touchy. The rest of them are just, hey, I'm learning stuff. I don't really have an opinion. Maybe I believe what Dave's saying. I don't believe what Dave's saying. But I'm learning things. I've got questions. It's something I'm curious about, and I want to hear what it is. Why do flat earthers believe what they believe? I know for me, that's what I'm trying to figure out. And it's always great, and I love having David Weiss with us because he knows his stuff. He's studied this stuff, and it's great. I think for a lot of our listening audience, they love the fact that they can ask some really hard questions and get some really good answers, whether that confirms or denies what they've been thinking. It makes for really good discussion. And I want to thank all the callers, all the texters today. Obviously, thanking big shout out to David Weiss, who takes every month, comes and joins us. Happy holidays to everybody. Happy holidays to you, Dave. We'll get Dave back again in January. God bless everybody. Alex Jones coming up next.
Bitching. Do something. Stop bitching. Do something. Stop bitching. Do something.